Today we're going to talk about what it takes to make our room go from this
to this. Hi, I'm Amy, and today we're going to take you through the process from beginning to end of changing our two-story family room area into what we hope will be a great room by the end of the project. And we're going to share everything with you, including the initial design, the process, the procedure, and of course, the cost. If you have followed this channel for a while, you've seen us build our house from dirt, you've watched us design and install our pool, and all along the way, we've shared the actual cost of our home construction. People seem to really appreciate seeing the true cost of these things. So in this video, we'll do the same thing. As a preview, it cost a lot more than we thought it was going to, but the flip side of it is that we love it a lot more than we expected. Let's start with the design. So I had an idea of what I wanted, but I'm not a designer, so I did what most people do, and I went to the internet and I pulled up pictures and I tried to compile a pretty big binder of some of the ideas that I wanted to implement into our project. I knew really at the end there were four main things that I wanted this to accomplish. First, some visual interest. With 20-foot ceilings, we just had a lot of blank walls. I wanted something with a little bit more wow factor. Secondly, I wanted a fireplace. I live in what we call Disney's backyard near Orlando, Florida, so we don't really have much practical need for a fireplace, but I just love the look of it. Third, I wanted some shelf and cabinet space that was either built in or at least looked like it. And finally, I wanted a mantle. I love Christmas, and we didn't have anywhere to hang the stockings at the holidays the past few years. I know it's a really specific thing, but it was also really important to me. We hired the French handyman. His name is Julien Massat. He is definitely French, and he is also really, really good at this. One of the things you find out when you're trying to find someone to do a project like this is that there are a lot of unreliable contractors out there. Some of the early delay we had was just getting people to call us back. And once we found the French handyman, the project was well on its way. I'm sure there are contractors out there that do detailed computerized drawings for a project like this, but Julien listened closely to what I was talking about. He looked at the pictures and then figured out where we were going to go from there. This made me a little bit nervous because I didn't actually know what it was going to look like until it was done. Trust is a big factor, and as we are transparent about the costs, it's really important to stress again how important that trust is with your contractor. Going into this, we really didn't have any idea. We were kind of flying blind, and I tell you what, we chose the right person. All contractors are not created equal. I would rather pay someone more to do the job right than to get a bargain. After all, there is some added value to the home, and we definitely want to make sure we choose the right person for that. In fact, if you choose the wrong one, you can actually hurt the value of your home. There were three sets of costs that we had for this project. Materials and preparation that we had to pay for ourselves. This was 14% of the total cost. Materials the handyman bought, this was 27% of the total cost. And installation costs for everything, which was 59% of the total cost. Let's just take you down the list of each line item. The biggest expense we had up front, and a really big decision, was whether or not we wanted to have heat from the fireplace. As I mentioned, I'm in Disney's backyard here in Central Florida. There aren't many days that I actually need the heat from the fireplace. Ultimately, we decided that we did want to have it, so that meant we had to have an electrician to come out and put in a dedicated circuit for the fireplace. That cost $1,200 to have done. We also had to buy the fireplace. I found this one on Amazon, which currently costs about $899, but I found it during a sale, so I got it for $765, including the shipping. The contractor asked that I order the mantle, which I did. The 6-foot mantle cost $425. I was a little anxious because when I called to order the mantle online, they implied that it was ready for shipping and that I would have it in just a few days. However, turns out that it wasn't going to get here in time. I actually called to confirm this. There was a lot of last-minute stress. Ultimately, I'm very happy with the finished product of the mantle, but that was probably the most stressful piece of it because it was the last piece of installation, and again, one of the main focal points. And if it hadn't gotten here in time, it would have had to push the project into another week. We chose the tile for around the fireplace and bought 3 boxes for a total of $75, even though I only actually ended up needing 2 boxes. Then there was the vent. Honestly, the vent in the middle of the wall was always ugly, and we were always going to need to have that vent right in the middle of the project. It was so ugly. So at the very least, we wanted to make it look a little bit better. So I bought this 12 by 12 vent cover, a decorative one, for $90, and the contractor installed it. I still don't love that there's a vent right up there in the middle of the project, but the reality is it's camouflaged a lot better than it was, and you know what? All in all, I'm really happy with it. The grand total of everything that we had to order up front, $2,555. Materials were about 27% of the cost, and so we'll just take you through those pieces. Wood for the main structure, $800. Wainscoting and molding on the main wall, $600. Trim pieces for the main wall, $800. Wood for the shelves, $450. Cabinets, $800. Countertops, $450. And trim wood for the huge accent walls, $1,100. Now, if you've been to your local lumber store or hardware store, you probably know the price of wood, and you might be thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, I could have done that myself a whole lot cheaper. That's almost certainly true. Contractors almost always double the cost of the materials to cover not only the materials themselves, but the trips to buy everything, the transportation of the materials, and well, because they can. This wasn't a DIY project. We really had no way of knowing how much wood the contractor would need. So we don't love that this cost was 27% of the project total, but in all honesty, that's okay. We figured this is probably pretty normal. And if not, live and learn. We're still happy with our project. So a total for all of the wood, $5,000. That is a lot, but it's not even half of what we had to pay. We'll give you the rest of the numbers and tell you how much more we had to pay. But first, do us a really big favor and watch this ad to help us pay for this. A quick word about payment. Remember, we paid $2,555 for the items that we needed up front. Then with our contractor, he required 30% up front for materials, which is normal. But again, that's a lot of money up front before the project even started. In fact, it was about $7,000. Now remember, your agreement with your contractor can be completely different. But for us, this was our experience. $7,000 is a lot. And remember, we were really going off of just my own little drawings. We didn't have a formal drawing or layout yet by our contractor. Just a lot of trust in him that this was going to turn out well. But as we saw it all going in and we saw the way he worked, we felt much, much better. Here are the costs for the installation of the entire project. Building this main wall was a big structural challenge. It required moving some electrical outlets, extending the AC ducts, and installing the new vent. Support for the fireplace, a mantle, and a big TV. And the ceiling here is 20 feet tall, so that meant the contractor had to have some scaffolding, and that's included in this line item. All in all, installing this main center structure cost $2,500. That's almost 25% of the cost of the installation, but still not the biggest expense. We also had trim work for the entire main wall at $2,300. Installation of the fireplace and the TV mount for $250. Installation of the mantle was another $100. Installing the tile was $600. Building the cabinets was $1,500, and installing and staining the counters was another $300. So the total for installation of the main wall came to a whopping $7,550. Whew. There's only one more installation item, and this was the biggest one of all, and you can see why. This is about a 20-foot tall by about 25-foot wide entire wall trim treatment that actually wraps around and goes behind the stairs as well. This was a big project. And doing this wall treatment is one of the moments where I had the most confidence in our contractor. It was an example of why everything doesn't have to be measured out perfectly to begin with. Before doing the vertical and horizontal lines of the trim work, he worked with me to determine which pattern and how exactly we want that stagger to look on the wall. That was really including the homeowner in the project and making sure that I was completely happy with the finished product.
Total installation for all that trim, $3,300.
That makes our total installation cost $10,850. So to recap the costs, $2,555 for things we bought ourselves, $5,000 for materials, and $10,850 for installation, for a grand total of $18,405. Another way to look at it is that the main wall was $14,005 and another $4,400 for the trim work on these two accent walls. Was it worth it? In a word, yes, absolutely. I am beyond thrilled with the overall finished project. It looks beautiful. But I will say that it cost about twice what I was expecting. I didn't really have an idea in mind, but you know what? Our pool also cost about twice what we were expecting, so maybe that's just what we need to count on, twice of what I think. Another thing to remember is that we didn't have a video like this one to help guide us through the process. We were flying blind, we had no idea, and all I did was pick pieces of other people's pictures to try to create ours. So whether or not you think we overpaid, you know what, maybe we did, but hopefully this will help you in the future, because remember, things are always going to be relative to the time and the area and the person that you are choosing to help guide you through this process. Once again, remember that this was our experience. Yours is going to be completely different. Maybe the numbers are going to be in the same range. Maybe yours is going to be more expensive. Maybe it's going to be less. The key is that you find the right contractor that can take your visions, your little piece together pieces of paper, and mesh them together and create something beautiful for you. Find the right contractor, put your trust in them, and you're going to have a beautiful experience. So what do you think? Leave us a note here in the comments. And as always, remember, please stay safe, stay well. Remember, we love you, and happy house hunting.